Chapter 32 The Orb. Ryder dismissed the group of generals and watched as they exited the conference room. Katie stayed behind to check in. I'm happy to see the generals are following my orders, and we are moving forward with plans, Ryder said, finishing his coffee. Yes, sir. You have really taken charge, like I knew you would. So, should we talk about the rest of the week? I suppose, Ryder agreed. He never really got used to the life of a bureaucrat. He was more of a fighter, ready to go on the missions. Well, sir, next week is the launch of the Mayflower. Remember, you will make a speech to the troops. Ryder was mixed with emotions. This meant he would get to see his grandson once more, but this would be the last time. Maybe forever. Katie, please make sure that I have no meetings planned right after my speech. I want to surprise Cooper by having lunch with him on the ship. Of course, sir. I already had that set up. I figured you would want some time with him, alone with him before he leaves. And how is the security going? I need to make sure everything is safe on the Mayflower, Ryder asked, even though he was briefed on this situation on a daily basis. Sir, everything seems to be on track. We pulled another 2 soldiers last week, but everyone else checks out. The EOA seems quiet at the moment. I know I ask you every day, but is there any word from Samuels? I was hoping we would hear something from him about their future plans. Nothing, sir, but I don't think they have found him out. I think if they knew he was a spy, they would kill him in a way that we would know about it. You know, make an example out of him. I agree, Katie. Well, I guess I need to sign off on the launch then. It has been delayed long enough, and it is time to send the Mayflower to Sperrier. Understood, sir. Katie got up to leave, and Ryder looked out the window, wondering if he made the right decision. I hope my grandson stays safe on the long journey. Chapter 33 Mayflower Dock. Instead of coming in through the personnel airlock, Talbot arranged for the EOA group to enter through the cargo bay with the rest of the final supplies in preparation for the launch in just a week. Talbot was dressed like a soldier with a staff sergeant designation. The rank gave him enough authority to get in and safe, but not enough to attract attention. Everything was going as planned, and they switched ships multiple times to avoid being detected or followed. They were coming in on a supply ship that just happened to have an undercover EOA member as the captain. Talbot saluted the second lieutenant who was on duty when they entered the cargo bay. It was 2 a.m, so, as expected, the greenest of soldiers was working the shift. The lieutenant saluted back and looked at his handheld. Talbot started. Sir, my name is Staff Sergeant Terry, and I'm here to bring in one more load of supplies. Lieutenant Denny looked down at his handheld and found the entry. Ah, yes, Sergeant. I see it here. It looks like supplies for Pod Bay 4. Talbot, Sergeant Terry, nodded. That is correct. I have some extra parts for the pods. I brought along 3 pods to replace the defective ones. As part of Talbot's preparation, the contractors made sure that a set of pods became defective during testing. This allowed Talbot the opportunity to save the day by bringing the replacement parts right before launch. Okay, sounds good. My assistant will escort you to Pod Bay 4. A few hours later, Talbot finished setting up the new pods, which happened to hold Father, Paul, and John. There was one empty pod, which was for him. He turned to Philip, his trusted EOA soldier who worked in this section. Are we ready? Talbot asked. Philip looked at the handheld, checking the time. The lieutenant should be off duty by now. Whispering to Talbot, he said, I need you to go into the bathroom and change. James is waiting for you. Talbot nodded and went to the bathroom. There he found James waiting for him, wearing the thin white robe to enter the pod. With Talbot's disguise, he looked similar to James, although James was slightly taller. This is why they wanted to wait until the lieutenant finished his shift so he wouldn't see the difference. They quickly exchanged clothes, and Talbot went out to the open pod. He climbed in, and Philip prepped him. When he was ready, Talbot grasped his hand and thanked him. You will have a special place reserved in heaven for all that you have done. Our Father will make sure of it. Thank you, Talbot. I will see you again soon. He closed the pod and watched as Talbot drifted to sleep. Then the lights in the pod dimmed to almost darkness. For now, Philip's mission was complete. He went to the bathroom door and knocked. James, now dressed as the Staff Sergeant Terry, shook his hand and left with the tools Talbot brought with him. Philip looked back at the 3 pods. There was still an open one for him, further down the row, which he would go into a few weeks after the Mayflower launched, when he was sure they were sure to be undetected. Chapter 34. The Streets of Toronto. "Come on, Valencia," Sam ordered. "Get in there." Valencia looked around as he entered the old warehouse. It was dimly lit, but they at least gave him a small flashlight so he could see where he was going. He looked back and noticed that Sam had a rifle trained on his every move. It had been that way ever since he was recruited to the Raiders. He was still being locked to the bed every night, and even now as he walked he could feel the cuffs around his wrists. It made it difficult to work and to find things, but he knew he must try his best if he wanted the chance of escaping. As he beamed the flashlight around the room, it reflected on something metallic. He moved closer and noticed it was a small counter. He was focused so much on the item that he ran into the table, knocking papers all over the place. He heard the inevitable yell from Sam, telling him to be careful and move quicker. Valencia used his hands to right himself, and then he proceeded to the counter. A register stood open and empty in front of him. "Sam, the register's empty," he yelled to the man silhouetted in the front door. If only I had my M16 right now, this would all be over, Valencia thought. He heard the usual cursing from Sam, but then looked around some more. Below the register were shelves and a locked cabinet. He used the small pliers they gave him to pry open the cabinet, and he examined it with happiness. In the cabinet were 2 unopened bottles of a clear alcohol. In addition, Valencia found a zipped bag of money. When he lifted it, he could tell it was loaded with coins. He wouldn't be set free any time soon, but at least he would get to eat tonight, which was something. He opened the bag he was carrying and loaded it up with the bottles and the money. Looking around the rest of the shelves, he found nothing else of value. He proceeded back out to Sam, who was yelling at him to hurry up. As they exited the building, Valencia could see the sun would be setting soon. Sam looked in the bag and slapped him on the back. "Oh, you have done well, Valencia. We might even find you some beef tonight, and maybe a little dessert. The boss is going to love this vodka. Let's go." He helped Valencia into the van and hooked his cuffs to a chain attached to a large eye hook on the wall. As they headed back to the home base, Valencia couldn't help but look down in frustration. He didn't know how long he had been here, but he knew it must be at least a few weeks now. Yet he was not able to make any progress toward an escape plan. It seemed his only hope of survival was to continue to please Sam until he finally trusted him enough to relax the rules. "I am sorry, John. I am trying," Valencia thought, staring up at the top of the van. Chapter 35. Mayflower. The day finally arrived for the Mayflower departure. Because of the size restrictions of the ship, many passengers were already in their pods in suspended animation before the ceremony. The soldiers who were scheduled on first watch were the ones in formation when Commander Ryder took the podium and spoke to them. "Today is a day that will never be forgotten. Today, man will start a new life on a new planet, Sperrier. As you know, Sperrier means hope in Italian. And for all of us, it is the hope that you will start a new human civilization. This is just the first of many of these journeys to other planets. Soon, mankind will extend so far across the galaxy that no natural disaster will ever stop us from continuing to provide a home for many generations to come." There was a cheer from the soldiers, including Cooper. "Thank you. While Voyager was a science mission, you will be the explorers, the ones who will actually go out and establish human life on the planet. For this, I applaud your courage and your willingness to take the risk." Ryder was still talking, but Cooper was lost in dreams. He was trying to hold it together, knowing he was leaving behind his only family, his grandfather. Luckily, his friends were with him. He took a risk and turned his head slightly. He wasn't supposed to do this in formation, but he turned just enough to see Childs, Chi, and Ally. They were his family now. They were his brothers, and he would be with them through the journey that would take almost 8 years. Then he thought of Anne. As soon as they launched, she would be lost forever to him. Cooper snapped back to the applause all around him. It looked like Ryder finished his speech. It was time. Ryder called everyone to attention and then dismissed the soldiers to get ready. Cooper stayed behind, hoping for one more minute with his grandfather. He skirted past the soldiers leaving and made his way to the front. Ryder was there talking to the general who was in charge of the Mayflower. Cooper hadn't met him, but from what he'd read in his file, he was someone who could be trusted. He too was going to be asleep for part of the journey, but would be on duty for the first few months while the Mayflower accelerated to full velocity. Once it was there, most of the personnel would be asleep, unless something went wrong. Cooper was scheduled for the first 2 weeks of duty, and then he would be awakened for a duty assignment around years 4 and 6. Finally, everyone would be awakened once they reached Sperrier safely. The plan was to establish contact with Voyager and land at their location. Of course, that was what all the travelers were told. With what Cooper knew about the Voyager crew being killed, he wasn't sure if they were still planning to land at that location. Ryder was finally finished talking with the general, and he came over to Cooper. "Cooper!" he exclaimed, giving him a tight hug. Cooper loved his hugs and knew he would miss them a lot. "Are you ready for this?" Ryder asked. "Yes, grandfather, I think I am. It was such a surprise to find out that Adeline, Childs, and Chi are going as well." "I thought you might be happy about that," Ryder said. "I knew about this before you left for the Mayflower, but I wanted it to be a surprise for you. They will definitely keep you grounded, and they are 3 people you can trust with your life." "I know. I was thrilled. We enjoyed spending time together when we aren't training." Ryder changed the subject. "Do you want to go have lunch with me? It is on my command ship, so it isn't anything special, but—" Cooper cut him off. "Of course, I would love it. I would love to." Ryder led the way, and they went on to the command ship together. They were alone at the moment. The guards gave them privacy to have their lunch. Cooper told him all about the training and preparation. Then Ryder talked about the preparations for the building of more ships. "The chairman of the World Space Congress is supportive of my ideas, so we should have the funding soon to start building in mass production." "That is great news." Then Cooper leaned in closer. "And have you heard anything from Samuels?" Ryder leaned in as well and replied, "No. It is a little worrisome. I expected that we would have some contact by now from him. We traced his ship to the North America, but as yet we haven't been able to pinpoint him or the EOA location. They learned from their earlier mistakes and are staying hidden." "And have there been any other attacks?" "No, nothing. This is also worrisome, as it means they are probably planning something quite serious, and they don't want anyone to blow it up by making a mistake. I thought with full access to all the military, I would have made more moves on them to finish it." "Don't worry," Cooper said, while biting into a sandwich. "I am sure your team will figure it out." Then, changing the subject, he said, "Did you hear that we can stay in the pods now up to 5 years?" "Yes," Ryder responded, finishing his own bite. "Actually, it was one of my members of the elite team, Bites, who figured out a way to make it longer. He is amazing with computers and technology." "So, have you ever been in a pod?" "Only a few times. One of my missions took me out to the asteroid belt, so I went under for a few weeks. It was not fun, so now I try to avoid it." "What happened?" "Well, Cooper, I am one of the lucky few that experiences nightmares instead of dreams. I was trapped in this nightmare where I'm unable to disarm the bomb, and the Mars dome is destroyed, and for some reason my mind forces me to see every single death as it occurs. Let's just say after that experience, I refuse to go under again." "So, what about you? How was your 24-hour trial?" Cooper paused for a moment, daydreaming about it again. "Well, let's just say it was a vivid dream, and I was with Anne." This made him pause, and his eyes started to water, but he took a deep breath and recovered. "Anyway, we were married and had 2 children." "I have heard they can be realistic. Did you come out of it okay?" "Well, I was so depressed and sad until the shower hit me. Luckily, there were these subtle differences when I was dreaming that helped me to realize it wasn't real, because without that, I don't know how I would have recovered." "Yes, that is one huge disadvantage of the pods. I am not sure how they will fix it in the future. There are some people who just never come out." The technician was talking about that. It sounded pretty rare. "It isn't perfect, but people who do okay with the 24-hour test are usually fine for the future." That is reassuring." They continued their conversation for the next hour until a guard arrived and notified them it was time to go. They both got up and looked at each other. "Cooper, I can't tell you how proud I am of you. You have done more with your life already than most anyone. You are going to do amazing things at Sperrier. I can't wait to hear the news of your journey. You will not be alone." "Thank you, grandfather. You changed my life, and I love you." Cooper had tears running from his eyes, but this time he didn't care. Ryder even started to tear up as they hugged for a long time. When their goodbye was over, the guard escorted Cooper back to his dorms, where he packed up his stuff for the launch. Ryder's ship was the last scheduled to leave the Mayflower before final preparations for launch. The Mayflower was tethered to a space station that supplied it power and other necessary materials. Once it undocked from the structure, the journey would begin. The acceleration process would start off slow, taking a few weeks to get to the full velocity of more than half the speed of light. If all went well, the journey would last around 7.5 years. Ryder sat in the bridge with Tracker at the controls watching the launch. Even though he knew Cooper was leaving forever, he had a weird feeling they might see each other again. The feeling didn't go away, but it didn't make sense either. When the Mayflower's engines lit up, he gave the order to Tracker to turn them to the orb. Chapter 36, Toronto. Valencia was caught up in a daily routine. He awakened before sunrise and was given a simple breakfast of a couple eggs and a piece of dry toast. If he performed well the day before, it might include a little jelly, or, the day he found the gold coins, a piece of bacon. Then they drove to another part of the city and entered either houses or skyscrapers, depending on where Sam wanted to take them. There were 3 other freelancers held captive now, but they were usually not together. Both Sam and another guard, Ronnie, monitored them. It was months now, and they never once left Valencia alone, even for a moment. However, one evening he was sitting in the common area, having earned the privilege of watching a movie, and Sam ran downstairs to get a beer for himself. Shocked to be alone for a moment, Valencia noticed something on the wall in one of the offices. He was not allowed to enter. He walked to the door of the office to examine it more carefully and realized it was a street map of Toronto. Sam probably would not be happy at Valencia looking at it, so he needed to memorize it fast. The fire station was marked on the map as home. He now understood why Sam asked him which entrance to Topside he came out. The park and the Union Station were about the same distance from where they were now. He could see some of the areas where they already ransacked. If he could get near Beamer Boulevard, he might be able to find the entrance near the park. Sam mentioned this street recently, and he planned to have the group spend some time inside of the big apartment complexes soon. Valencia's hope was quickly restored now that he finally knew a way to escape. He heard Sam coming up the stairs, so he sat back down on the couch. "You know, Valencia, if you keep up the good work, you might even earn one of these beers sometime." Sam said this as he took a big gulp. Valencia could smell the stench of the stale beer on him. Disgusted at the thought of drinking one, he smiled and nodded in agreement. "So, Sam, where are we going this week?" "Well, I was looking at the map, and there were some big apartment complexes down near the old stadium. They had a lot of windows, so there might not be anything there that was protected from the weather. But it is worth a check. This will be the first time I let you go solo. I don't like going into those big apartments. Sometimes there are still skeletons left from the people who refused to go underground. They just sat in their houses or apartments until they passed away or killed themselves. The whole thing creeps me out. This is where you freelancers come in handy. Better you than me. This is a big step of trust, so don't mess it up or by trying or to do anything stupid." I won't, Sam. I am trying my best to make you and the boss proud." Valencia learned how to flatter just enough to be believable. "Good man," Sam said as he slapped Valencia on the back. "Now, I believe it is time for you to go to bed. Don't worry about the cuffs tonight." Valencia thanked Sam a number of times before heading to bed. He was using another tactic John taught him, to always be gracious when your captor gives you a little something good. This way it might lead to more in the future. He thought a number of times about just trying to escape from the fire station, but even if he got past Sam, there were guards at the other entrances and patrolling the streets around the immediate vicinity. They were serious about security at the home base. Valencia knew his only shot to escape was when they were out on a freelancing mission, because only Sam and Ronnie would be there. He thought about seeing if the other freelancers would want to join forces to escape, but better to not let anyone know what he was planning. One of the other freelancers might turn him in to earn extra credits. The element of surprise was also important. The next day, They left in the van and headed out to the apartment complex. The other three freelancers mostly kept to themselves, a look of sadness in their eyes. He learned their names, which were Chris, Harry, and Rich. Valencia tried to emulate their look, but inside he was ready. He was a soldier and wanted nothing more than to find his chance to fight back. They pulled up in front of a large apartment complex. As they got out, Valencia noticed a street sign lying in the rubble. He could just make out Brandebo in the sign. He was only a few blocks from Roundhouse Park. Maybe this was the day I could be free. Looking up in the building, he noticed that most of the windows were gone, and the vines he saw when he first arrived engulfed the entire structure. They were starting to turn green. Could it be that I have been prisoner all the way into springtime? He wondered, trying to think about how many months he was captive. It was hard to know how long, but he decided that today was the day. It would all end, even if it got him killed. They headed up in the entrance as a group. It was decided that each freelancer would take a floor, and Valencia volunteered to take the fifth floor to position himself the furthest away and deepest into the building. They proceeded up the stairs carefully, each of them with a little radio, and they were told to check in every 10 minutes. Maybe this is my chance, Valencia thought. Chapter 37, Command Ship, Moon Orbit. Ryder looked out over Tracker's shoulder at the space stations waylaid in front of him. Katie stood to the other side of Tracker. Ryder could see the progress was being made on the three interstellar ships. The USS Constitution was the furthest along. Even though the approval of Operation Seeding was only a month earlier, the ship was already starting to take form. It was scheduled to leave for the planet New Hope, once known as Ross 128b, in just under a year and a half. While the journey would take more than 15 years, that planet was more promising with Earth-like temperatures and even some large water lakes. Ryder asked, Katie, is Constitution still on track to depart in a year and a half? Looking at the latest data, it seems to be on track. There is a small problem with the propulsion system they are trying to resolve, but Bites is working on it, Katie responded, looking up from her handheld. Bites seems to be able to solve just about anything, Ryder said, nodding his head. It does appear that way. Do we have any word from Mayflower? Sir, it is still on track and should arrive on schedule. That is good news, Ryder thought. I hope I made the right decision by letting my only grandson go. Chapter 38, Apartment Complex in Toronto. Valencia calling. I'm on the 5th floor. Roger that. Gather what you can and keep me posted. Valencia noticed right away that this floor was in bad shape. There were big holes in the floor, and he could feel the breeze from the outside blowing in through most of the open or missing windows and doors. At night, while trying to sleep, he would think about the different ways he could escape and trying to go through scenarios in his mind. Most of them didn't end well. He thought about faking an injury and then surprising Sam when he arrived and killing him, but he knew they would just send one of the other freelancers to help. His best escape was just to sneak out of the building while continuing to report back about his findings. Hopefully, after so many months of trust, they would believe him, which would give him the time to get out of the range. He needed to make sure he had a weapon just in case they found him before he escaped, so that was the first thing he was looking for in rooms. He crept into the first apartment on the left and noticed it was exposed to all the elements. The room was rotted out. In fact, he didn't even step in because he could see the holes in the floor that exposed the 4th floor below. If the other freelancer was looking up, they could have waved at each other. He moved forward. By the 5th room, things weren't looking any better. He radioed in to check in and let them know that the rooms were in bad shape. He assumed they were getting the same report from the other freelancers. When he got close to the end of the hallway, he noticed one door was still closed. He tried the handle, but it was locked. He tried pushing against the door, and he heard the door groan. Pushing harder, it groaned a little more. He decided to give it a running start, and he ran from the other side of the hallway and put his full weight into the door. There was an earth-splitting sound as the hinges and frame came loose, and the door collapsed to the floor with Valencia on top of it. He knew this would rouse some suspicion, so before doing anything else, he radioed in. I'm okay. The door was jammed, but I busted through. Then he lied. This looks like a room that might contain some treasure. Stand by. Sam confirmed with a click of the mic. Valencia began to look around the room for something that might be of use in his escape, when he muffled a scream at the sight of the family of skeletons in the living room, all facing the television. He almost threw up looking at the bodies. Most of the flesh was gone, but the remaining tissue was being devoured by thousands of maggots. Trying not to look into their eyes, he finally saw what he was hoping to find. The man, he guessed, since the skeleton was much bigger than all of the rest, was holding a hockey stick in his hand. Valencia got up carefully from the floor and proceeded to the chair. The stick was big, but the best thing about it was its thickness. This meant that it would be strong enough to use as a weapon if necessary. As he reached for the stick, he heard the radio crackle. "Valencia, give me an update. What have you found?" This would be the time to make a decision. If he was ready to escape, he could lie. He considered for a moment and looked out the window. He was on the opposite side of the building from the entrance, and the vines reached up this far and looked thick. He made his decision. "Sam, it looks like there are coins here and possibly some electronics that might still work." "Do you need help?" No, it should fit in the backpack. I will fill up my backpack for the next few minutes and let you know if I need more help." "Okay, keep me posted, and I will be waiting in the lobby for you." Now was the time. He reached for the stick and tugged on it. The skeleton held on tight for a moment, and then the bones came apart with a small crackling noise. At last he held the stick in his hand. It reminded him of the pugil sticks they trained with when Samuels was in charge. The memories were faded now. He could not even estimate how long he had been a slave to these people. But today is the day I fight back, he thought. He was trained by Samuels to improvise, and back at EOA headquarters, he practiced using a variety of objects and techniques to disable an opponent. Valencia went to the window and noticed it was still intact. He pulled on the sliding door, but it didn't open. So he carefully went back out the door and into the next room, which was wide open, so he could access the balcony. He looked down. Heights never bothered him, and with all the vines growing up the side of the building, he couldn't determine how far down it was. He made a quick radio check, letting Sam know he was still packing, and then strapped the stick to his back. Climbing over the balcony wall, he started down the thick vines. He climbed down quickly but carefully, avoiding the windows so that one of the other freelancers didn't see him. About halfway down, he decided to check in one more time and said, "Sam, I finished in the room and I'm headed to the last view in the hallway." "Roger that." Then Valencia kept climbing. It was getting easier as he got closer to the ground. He started thinking about his next step. He knew from the map which way the Roadhouse Park was, but he wanted to make sure he didn't go directly on that road, so he planned to turn off the main road and take a slightly different route in case they tried to follow him. As he jumped to the bottom and got ready to go, he heard something behind him. "What the hell?" Turning, Valencia saw Sam. "Hey, Sam, I ran into trouble when part of the roof collapsed, so I decided to climb down instead. Let me show you what I got." As he told the lie, he swung his pack to the ground and released this hockey stick. It was time to battle. "Valencia, were you trying to escape?" Sam said as he moved closer. He didn't look into Sam's eyes, but continued to open the pack. Sam was coming even closer. Valencia remembered how important the element of surprise was, so he pulled out a small ball he found a few days ago to create distraction. "Check this out, Sam." He said this as he threw the ball at Sam. Sam's natural reaction was to try to catch it with one hand. His eyes were on the ball, so he wasn't paying attention when Valencia swung the hockey stick up and into his knee. Sam howled in pain, letting the ball fall to the ground. He held his bat in both hands and limped toward Valencia. "You're gonna pay for that." Valencia backed up a little with both hands gripping the hockey stick. When Sam swung the bat, he raised the stick perpendicular to the ground and blocked the swing. The stick cracked a little but didn't break. The swing put Sam off balance, and Valencia turned and swung the blade of the hockey stick directly across Sam's face, which caused a huge gash and blood started pouring from Sam's cheek. Sam exploded in anger as he swung the bat from above, hoping to bring it down on Valencia's head. But again, Valencia blocked it. This time, though, the power of the swing cracked the stick in half. Noticing this, Sam howled with laughter and let his guard down for a moment, assuming that Valencia was now defenseless. The months of mistreatment flooded Valencia's thoughts. He noticed that one end of the cracked stick was sharp. He turned it toward Sam, and using his full weight, moved forward and stabbed Sam's stomach with the stick. It connected and penetrated into him. Sam looked shocked as the pain of the stab wound hit him. He dropped the bat and reached for the stick, trying to pull it out. Valencia pushed harder, and the stick went in deep, causing Sam to fall back to the ground. Throwing his radio and bag to the ground, Valencia got up and started running. He looked to the sky and pointed one finger, thanking John for the training. When he rounded the corner, he saw the stadium in the distance and sprinted toward the park.